my name's Miranda, and today I'm here to discuss an interesting movie I watched on Netflix the other day, and that is called Dangerous Liaisons. This is, of course, a remake of a 1990s movie, I believe, and then also a remake of Cruel Intentions, which I have never seen either of those movies, but I have heard a lot about Cruel Intentions. Like, I feel like I know a good amount about that. And then I did look up the plot of Dangerous Liaisons, the original. Oh my gosh, like, before we get into this movie, I just wanted to take a quick moment to give a shout out to today's sponsor of this video, which is my dad. My dad pays for our family's Netflix account, and because of him, I was able to watch the film and bring this to all of you. So shout out to my dad. Thank you so much for sponsoring today's video. And also, if any of you are watching right now, make sure to give a thumbs up on this video and you will receive one free dad joke in your inbox. Getting back to the movie though, so this is of course an updated take on the whole idea of dangerous liaisons, and of course any modern take these days, what do they decide to take a dive into but of course social media. So it opens with this really angsty kind of introspective monologue from the love interest Tristian, and he's basically saying that hundreds and hundreds of years ago, elite class was considered people who were noble or of noble blood, and then it changed into people who were rich, and nowadays it's changed into people who are famous, which I digress with a little just because I feel like it is definitely fame and rich. Like, I feel like they go very well hand in hand. So the main character, Celine, she has just moved from Paris to this new city with her dad. She's staying with her cousin and her uncle, who's the principal of the new school that she's going to be attending. And the main things you need to know about Celine are she is engaged to her high school boyfriend, her fiance. Everyone finds this super strange in the movie that she's engaged at 17, which, yeah, I get that's pretty young, but like, it's not like they're like, oh, we're getting married tomorrow. Like, she's gonna finish high school and stuff. She's just kind of that, like, I'm not like other girls, right? She brings a book to a pool party, which is definitely a choice. I'm not judging anyone for bringing a book to a party. Like, you do you. That sounds like a fantastic idea. I do have to wonder the decision that went into bringing a super expensive, super rare copy of a book to a party that is outside full of a bunch of drunk teenagers that are around a cascade of water. Like, that seems like a choice to me, but you know. So she initially meets Tristian when he saves her dog from getting hit by a car, which I feel like is supposed to be a nice thing that sets him up to be like, oh my gosh, he saves dogs, he's an animal lover, we should root for him. But really, the more you get to know him and the more you watch this movie and what happens, you're honestly gonna wish the car kind of hit him. I'm gonna be real with you. He, for some reason, is just so enchanted by her and then ends up inviting her to this pool party where everything takes off the big plot from there, because this is where we meet his girlfriend, who is a former child star who is now like this big social media influencer. So between him and her, they're the power couple with their combined 500 million, however, plus followers they have. And we find out at the party that they have this weird pact thing going on between each other, where every year they make a bet about either one of them having to sleep with someone who seems like an impossible thing, and they bet like their cars, their boats, their houses, just like all the rich stuff. The weird thing too about this was that she mentions that she had tried to seduce the principal last year and lost, but then the other previous mention we had gotten was also her, which logically I thought they would have taken turns, like her, him, just to be, you know, like the fair kind of thing. So if the last two turns were both her, I feel like that means they took a year off for quarantine, which honestly is very responsible of them, and I do give them that. The other weird thing though is that they're like 17, 18, they're seniors in high school, and if they've been doing this for at least 2 or 3 years, that means they've been doing it since they were at least 15, 14, like, it just seems very, very strange. Of course, the bet ends up being that he will somehow seduce Celine away from her fiance, and the way he goes about it is just, yeah. I feel like there's a very, like, 90s, 2000s pre-feminism kind of take to a lot of these movies that were, like, about a bet, about, like, changing someone or doing something like that. So now, looking through a lens of, like, 2022 at these movies, you're like, whoa, but this one is just particularly bad. He does some incredibly, incredibly messed up stuff. Also, just a side note, because I feel like this needs to be mentioned, on the first day of school, one of his friends, Tristian's, says something super homophobic to her only friend, and rather than going and confronting that guy, she goes up to him and says this iconic line, which I really feel like is supposed to be reminiscent of the iconic Cinderella storyline. Waiting for you is like waiting for this drought to end. Useless and disappointing. But it just didn't flow the same way, because I'm like, why are you telling him off when like the guy who just said the awful thing is right there and like you seem like the kind of girl that would tell him off. So I don't know about that. But anyway, the movie, this is where I honestly got confused, okay? Because she and her friend are talking about this student who had some type of surfing accident who needs to raise money for a surgery in America so he can go there. And this is where I get so confused because I really don't understand what happened. So Tristian is listening and hearing what they're talking about and being like, oh, that's sad that no one can raise money. He then Venmos, I don't really even know, 1,000 euros to her friend. And I thought like, oh, the friend must be running the GoFundMe, which makes no sense. But like, it really was the only logical explanation in my head of like why he would Venmo the friend $1,000. So the friend is then like, oh, thanks, and walks away. And I'm like, wait, did he just Venmo him $1,000 just so he could be alone with her instead of like walking up and being like, hey, can I be alone with her? So I have no idea what that $1,000 was for. The very next scene, Tristian's now running for class president or something. They don't even really say what it is, but his platform is that he will, of course, raise the money, which no one seems interested in except her. So then I guess he's just automatically elected student body president. They don't show the elections or anything like that. But then the next thing we know is him and her are teaming up to present to the board their idea for raising money, which I feel like just do a bake sale, do something like super easy. But no, their idea is we're going to put on a play starring Tristian's girlfriend, who's a child star and like a really good actress. And when the board is kind of like, oh, I don't know if that's a great idea, Selana's just like, oh, we'll make it a musical? Like, it's just that? And mind you, the bet is he has 2 months to sleep with her. So I'm assuming that this time spent with, like, all of it, he wants that within the time frame. So they're going to make this well-known book into a musical, a full production stage in less than 2 months. And somehow the board is like, sounds great. Like, it just makes no sense to me how, like, how did we get from just a person needing money for surgery to now we're putting a full Broadway production level of play on for them to raise? I don't get it at all. So that's just one of the things he does. I wanted to dive deep more into the ways he tries to wheel and deal and spend time with her because my gosh, you're watching and you're just like, I'm supposed to be wanting them to end up together at the end. So they exit stage left and you see these two people fighting. One's with a crutch and the other dude is just beating the F out of the guy with the crutch, which you're just like, awful. And then Tristian takes off to break it up and you're like, oh my gosh, wow, like he really is a nice guy. Only to find out when she walks away that he paid those people to stage that fight, which is just so strange to me of like, you could have just stopped a real fight. You could have stood up when your friend was being super homophobic to her friend. She probably would have appreciated that more. So somehow that then convinces her to spend more time with him and agrees to go to the movies with him. She's smart though and does bring her cousin with her, so she's like, this is definitely not a date, but like I would be running for the hills, honey, right now. And there's actually like this cute scene where like she keeps putting her hand, like whenever she puts her hand in the popcorn, he puts the hand in his popcorn, and I'm like, if we just stuck it at that, that'd be cute. Like where you're just like a little bit annoying, you know, like you don't want her to forget you. But he has to take it up a level and kiss her without her consent. And I was reading like a review of it and someone was like, oh, she accidentally ends up kissing him at the movies. And I was like, she was no way involved, shape or form in that. Like she kissed her and she was like, get off of me. So she runs out, of course. He chases after her, completely shocked that she wouldn't want to cheat on her fiance for this boy she's known for 2 weeks. And come to find out, she says basically that she's been warned away from him, but she was still trying to give him a chance to be friends. And boy, does this piss him off, okay? He wants to know who the F has dared talked badly about him when he's been doing, remember what we know about him, bets every year about getting someone to sleep with him. He staged a fight and, of course, kissed her without her consent. So, like, in a way, I'm like, yeah, I think I can see where that person is coming from. But you would think that, like, this is slander against his character. Like, he is like, how dare they? So the next logical step, of course, is to confront and blackmail her friend into bugging her phone so he can see who she's talking to at all times and what they're saying about her. This is the love interest, guys. And I'm just like, also, side note, this was not like the big thing, but I don't understand why his girlfriend was also here and an active participant in blackmailing the friend, because like, if he wins the bet, she loses. So like, she should want this to fail and like, be happy that someone warned him off her. So I don't understand why she's so willing to go along with it and like, be there and help blackmail him. I'm like, girl, you're playing for the other side. I digress. But yeah, he bugs her phone, which I'm like, oh my gosh, clones it essentially so he can see her texts, and he finds out that it's her cousin that warned her off of him. And he is so enraged by this, that the cousin would dare talk badly about him, that he, in his mind, thinks the only logical solution that could possibly make this situation any better for him is to sleep with the cousin. I kid you not. He calls his girlfriend and is like, I'm ready to sleep with the cousin. I don't know how you think that would help endear you to Celine by sleeping with her cousin, breaking her cousin's heart, and then presumably her cousin goes to Celine to cry about it. But, you know, I don't know the way of the teenage boy. Many scientists have studied it and not figured it out, and it doesn't look like we're going to be cracking the code in this one either. So we then cut to this costume party at Vanessa's, and this is when, I'm going to be honest, the movie goes from barely tolerable to absolutely unbearable. You start to question why you're here, metaphorically, physically, what you've done to come to this place, if it's really worth getting through the rest of this, but you're in too deep now to get out. The last hour of this movie, there's so much music, there's so many montages, and since their play is a musical, there's singing, and there's rapping, and there's more rapping. The main love interest in this raps so many times, and it's always with the energy of a TikTok star who just got a Bang sponsor, yet thinks they're putting on the next Hamilton. So the main things about the party that happen are Celine is somehow now a famous Instagram star from dancing to Carly Rae Jepsen's Call Me Maybe with her cousin at the party. Everyone loves her now. She's super famous, and Vanessa feels very threatened by this. Also, somehow she now likes Tristian, even though from the time that we've last seen him, he's had no apology to her about kissing her without her consent. There really hasn't been any extra thing that we've seen. It's just like he kisses her, she's done, and then all of a sudden she's dreaming about him and wants to have sex with him and is ready. And he's about to win the bet, but no, he can't go through with it because he has feelings for her. So they end up having to work on the play and redo the last scene, and somehow he is like, I'm gonna go surf before we do this, so she decides to join him and somehow gets knocked out like a rag doll just from getting hit with a wave once. I don't really understand it. But luckily, don't worry, we've got a doctor on hand to figure out how to treat her best. So at the play, Tristian basically tells her that he wants to end their fake relationship and he doesn't care about the blackmail they have on each other, and Vanessa is not taking that line down, no, because it turns out she recorded them hooking up and threatens to release it unless he breaks up with her, which he does in spectacular fashion by dropping some really subtle hints towards her that this is not what he actually wants to do. See if you can pick up on those hints. So he does this, he breaks her heart, and Vanessa releases the tape anyway, and then the most puzzling sequence of events happens. This comes out, the tape. Vanessa pretends that, like, she's been cheated on, that the relationship is real, blah, blah, blah. Celine then goes and throws herself into the ocean. I don't really know why, because, like, something similar like this just happened to her cousin. Her ex-fiance comes, pulls her out, they reconcile and say, like, you know, they always will have love for each other, but it's not romantic love. Tristian, meanwhile, is doing his thing up on the roof, where the point where you think he's gonna fall off, but then Celine goes on her Instagram live to give her side of the story and say basically that she forgives Vanessa for being so obsessed with social media that she would do these things to try and take her down. But I'm also like, okay, but what she did is a crime? Like, she's a minor and she released a video of her having sex, and that's definitely a crime. So, like, no, that's not like the bigger issues where, like, oh, Vanessa's so fame obsessed. Like, no, she is a criminal. And that's a big thing with this. They use sensational things as plot devices. They use the sex tape. They use the suicidal kind of references to her throwing herself in the ocean and Tristian walking on the roof in a way that, like, doesn't ever seem to really treat it with the respect it deserves. But also, the other thing I'm very confused about is she broadcasts on her Instagram live her making up with Tristian. And I don't understand it because I feel like the idea for this movie is supposed to be about how, like, social media can corrupt you and make you do things that you wouldn't normally do. But I thought the message would be then, like, oh, like, they're gonna be, you know, not off social media. Like, really, social media is not good for them. And Tristian kind of does this where he's like, I don't care about my followers. Like, I just want to be able to live my life. But she broadcasts their makeup and, like, their full kiss. And there's, like, comments of people watching out in the live stream like, yay, Tristian! And it just feels very weird and very off-putting. Like, what exactly is the message of this if that's how they make up? And like, I don't want to watch this. I really don't. Like, save this moment for yourself. I also don't understand how a girl who didn't even know what verified meant at the start of this movie now has a successful enough Instagram that she has 2 million followers. The most bonkers part of this whole movie is the ending. And I just want you, after everything I've told you about this, to guess how it ends. Just take a moment, think to yourself, write it down, write in the comments what you think this movie ends with. Did you guess her cousin getting married in a throuple? No? No, you didn't? Because I didn't either. And of course we have to get one last wrap in from our main guy before we're finished. I honestly have no idea what this movie was about. I don't know if it was supposed to be a criticism of social media like it seemed to be. If you read the actual thing of Dangerous Liaisons, the guy does some seriously bad stuff, and the stuff that Tristian does in this, while not as bad as that, borderline stuff, and I'm just so over movies and shows that reward that. Side note, I also hate that like all these like actors, and I do think this is like a French TikToker, like the equivalent of that, like when there's a serious scene, all they do is like half close their eyes, and that's how they emote seriousness. Like just like half eyelid, and I don't understand. Why is that your choice? So this movie just confused me, confuddled me. I'm so over movies where the love interest does some really creepy things, like not to mention he blackmails her friend. He would willingly sleep with her cousin if he hadn't fell asleep. A very weird message and a very weird movie in general. So yeah, that's the movie. I feel like it's gonna be one that I won't soon forget, but really, really wish I would, you know? Especially that rapping. The rapping's gonna stick with me. Definitely an interesting movie. I will say that for sure. Just a very confusing, I don't know what their message was, I don't know what the point of it was, and I don't know how you are supposed to root for a love interest that, again, blackmails her best friend to clone her phone, and then also his revenge mode is to sleep with her cousin, even though he doesn't. Like, it's interesting to me that he really didn't have any redemption in my eyes between, and especially in terms of like what we saw with Celine, between being like that and then all of a sudden she liked him and cared for him without actually seeing any change from him. And I also think a thing that rubbed me the wrong way too was Celine didn't actually know about most of the stuff he did. She didn't know that he paid those people to fight, and she didn't know that he cloned her phone. Like, those things never came out. Just avoid boys like Tristian. And yeah, thank you guys all so much for checking out this video. I know it's a bit different than what I normally do, but just watching this, I was like, I need to react to this, but I don't want to spend 2 hours sitting in front of a camera. So let me know what you guys thought, and also if you have any opinions on the movie yourself, make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!